Guys, it's your girl T, and I want to go ahead and shout out Sasha Sapphire and VH1 Access. So this is kind of a crazy story. It's having to do with our favorite friend Kanye West and Mr. Nelson Mandela, rest in peace. So what happened is that VH1 Access, this was over the weekend, he had posted this article on my fan page and basically saying that Kanye had said all this stuff about Nelson Mandela. And so a few people posted on there. And when I went to go click on it, at first I was like, what? I can't believe he said that. That's some nonsense. And I read it, and then I realized the site I was on, and it was the Daily Current. So what a lot of folks don't realize is that there's a lot of blog sites now that are trying to be like The Onion. The Onion is a spoof news channel on YouTube. And what they do is that they spoof the news. They basically just make up outrageous news claims. And when you watch it, you would think that it's real. Well, a lot of blogs are starting to do this now. And so when they announced that Kanye had compared himself to Nelson Mandela, folks were outraged. Folks were going off on Kanye. He was getting drugged on Twitter. When I realized the site that it was posted on, I went back onto my post, onto VH1 Access's post, and I wrote on there that, you know, this is not real, and we need to be careful putting stories out there like that. And I stand by my comment wholeheartedly. I think a lot of times YouTubers and vloggers, you know, we get sent so many stories. Some people don't check the validity of the story. I remember about a week or so ago, people were flooding my inbox with the story about the woman who had killed two guys playing the knockout game. It was a 60-year-old woman named Beulah. And supposedly these guys were trying to knock her out, and she pulled out a gun and she killed them. And as soon as I read this story, I called bullshit. And I told the people who were sending me the story, this is not a real story. I did my research. I can't find what state it took place in. There's no news articles. There's no legitimate source. This is just something that somebody made up on a blog to more or less perpetuate some more propaganda about the knockout game. So with that being said, we have to be careful what we put out there. Regardless if you're a blogger, a vlogger, or somebody who's just on the internet posting stories. You know, we have to be careful what we put out there because everything that's online is not necessarily true, hence this case with Kanye West and Nelson Mandela. So Kanye came to Twitter to defend himself after being attacked by millions of people. He came on Twitter to defend himself and basically state that he did not say that. It's a spoof website. He has nothing to do with this. So here go his tweets right here. So now with that being said, I feel bad for Kanye, but then I don't feel bad for Kanye because Kanye has said so much outrageous stuff that he really needs to go back and just think about some of the things that come out his mouth. For people to go onto a spoof website and believe everything written on there without a second thought, I mean, people really want it off with Kanye's head. That goes to show you that so much of what comes out of Kanye's mouth is such exaggerated, you know, arrogant bullshit that people would believe this without even thinking a second thought or even verifying that the facts were true. And that's all because of Kanye's own doing. Recently, the Global Grind posted 88 crazy comments that Kanye said in 2013. Had everything on there from him calling out President Obama, him saying that Kim Kardashian deserves her own star, him saying that, you know, she's more influential than Michelle Obama, him going off on Sway, him going off on Jay-Z about suit and tie, him going off on Pusha T. I mean, just all these rants and ravings. And now he's saying that it's, you know, harder to be a rapper than a police officer. Now he's comparing himself to being a police officer or being somebody, you know, who goes to war and that the rap game is dangerous. And then all the stuff he said about Nike. So Kanye has done a lot of ranting. And when you go through the list of these 88 things that he said, some of them are unbelievable, but he really said them. You know, even when he went off on Jimmy Kimmel about the whole skit. You know, he's upset that folks believe this spoof, but the sad thing is that all the real stuff that he said sounds so similar to this spoof that I understand why folks were fooled. But again, we have to do our research and we have to realize that some of these stories that are being put out here are fake stories. They're out there to push propaganda, and really they're not needed. Why do we need a spoof blog site? You know, why just make up lies? That makes no sense to me. You know, The Onion is funny because they're actually talented. They're going out there, they're recording and editing, they're putting work into what they do. Somebody on a spoof website is just writing bullshit out the air. There's no talent in that. Anybody can just make up a story and post it on the internet. So again, we have to be mindful of what we believe and what we choose to put our energy into. So with that being said, I'm glad Kanye cleared it up. I'm glad he was able to clear his name. And I'm really glad that he really didn't say that about Nelson Mandela, because Nelson Mandela was definitely a great man who deserves to be respected. He's done a lot, not just for South Africa, but for people all over the world. You know, his plight needs to be something that is respected by everyone. So anyways, rest in peace to Nelson Mandela, and thank you, Kanye, for coming and clearing that up to everybody, because it was off with your head there for a moment. So anyways, go ahead and leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts on the entire situation. All right, deuces.